Thanks for joining us today as we dive into the ways to really reduce friction during intake, ultimately to win more clients. You might be here today because you're looking at ways to make improvements to your current intake process. Maybe you're looking to enhance your overall client experience. So kind of one benefit is Joe and I really understand the unique challenges that our customers face during intake. So we wanted to kind of share some practical tips, some strategies that you can kind of take back to your firm today. And so just a couple quick housekeeping notes. We are recording this webinar, so feel free to take as many notes as you want, but know that you will get a copy of this recording sent to your email. And also we do have a Q&A feature. So we'd love to kind of hear from our attendees today. What questions do you have? Maybe even some experiences that you have or feedback that you want to share. We'd love to kind of hear that information. We'll mostly save those Q&A and kind of wrap that at the end. So let's start with who we are. So again, my name's Libby Luff. I am the Strategic Partnerships Manager here at PracticePanther. And that means that I get to work with bar associations and legal organizations across the country. I also get to work with great partners like Joe here, where we're really helping to provide support, maybe a little education for attorneys on ways that they can efficiently and effectively manage their practices. A little bit about me, I have 15 years of experience in kind of that sales and marketing operation front. And so I really love to kind of turn those strategic challenges into some untapped opportunities. And so I wanted to kind of hand this over to Joe, and he can give a little bit more about himself and what he does.
You give great introductions, Libby. Yeah, well, I cannot top that, but I will tell you, we share the same title. I'm the Strategic Partnerships Manager here at Intaker. And what that means is working with, it could be marketing agency partners, it could be software partners like PracticePanther, or even legal masterminds. If anyone here has been to one of those amazing mastermind, either events, summits, or you're part of a small group of people on the same journey, lawyers on the path of growth, of development. We partner with all these types of groups, and I'd love to get to know you, whoever's watching this. If anything we talk about here today, you want to dig deeper, learn more, please reach out. My background, before getting into sales was in education, actually. So I made the switch, from teaching into selling, and I do believe that sales can be a service. That if we serve from our heart, helping you, the attorneys and people watching this, deliver a better service to your clients and help them transform their lives. That's why we're all here. So that's kind of where my heart is coming from. And yeah, let's jump right in. I think that's all I wanted to share.
Awesome. Well, that sounds great. Well, then let's kind of dive in. For those of you who may not be familiar with PracticePanther, we are an all-in-one legal practice management solution really created for the solo and small firm experience. So we really focus on two things for our customers. First, we really want to be intuitive. You're working in this platform every day, so it should be pretty to look at and it should be easy to use. Our second thing is that customization factor. Customize really for your specific practice area, for your specific needs. There's so many different areas that you can customize within our platform, really making it bespoke to your firm's needs and what you want to do. Several of the ways we do that is with some seamless case management, where you're linking your contacts, your matters, documents, utilizing kind of that single source of truth. And cool benefit is you can actually access this from anywhere. So our mobile app is the full feature of our desktop as well. So even when you're on the go, you'll have access to everything. We have effortless time tracking and billing, no matter kind of how you track your time. If you kind of upload it at the end of the day, end of the week, or if you're really good and you kind of keep on track of your time as you in your projects, we kind of have multiple ways for you to track your time. We also kind of have those native payment processing options. So you can apply those pay now buttons directly on your invoice, accept credit and debit card, ACH, really just making it faster and easier for your clients to pay. And then finally, we kind of wrap with that customized detailed reporting is really important for our law firms. We actually come standard with a number of kind of basic reports to get started, and you can really kind of slice and dice the information from there. So that's kind of a quick overview of PracticePanther.
Very cool. Well, Libby, thank you. And what is Intaker anyway? Maybe you've seen it, maybe you heard of it. There's a few areas. However, our origin is with website chat, adding video to the chat experience, especially for law firms. What this started, this originally came out of COVID. While we had the chat before, adding video as a way to add a layer of personal touch, warmth, empathy to interactions with between law firms and people looking maybe for help because they couldn't get FaceTime with a lawyer. And having that way to build a bit of trust on the first interaction, even just through the chat before they even speak to someone, getting to feel and hear your voice and feel your energy. That's something that a lot of people have continued to find valuable, even to present 3 years out. However, that's not where we left off. We wanted to create a system that would be helpful for any law firm that's looking to streamline their intake process with things like text messaging. We know we'll talk more about that. That's the preferred communication channel these days for the modern consumer, as well as lead management. Whereas PracticePanther is going to give you tools to run your whole practice. Intaker, we really just focus on getting people to say yes, right? Getting people qualified in the door, being able to work those leads in a way that feels good for them, is easy for your team. And that's about all I want to say.
I love it. And I love, if you haven't had a chance to visit the Intaker site and actually see these interactive chat videos, they're so cool. I definitely recommend it. And I know video tends to be kind of a lot of things that law firms are talking about, and especially around law firm marketing and conversation. So I think that's awesome.
Right on.
So let's kind of get into today's discussion. So we're really going to start today by talking about really about the problems and challenges that law firms are encountering during the intake process, and really even a few reasons to consider why you need to optimize this process, really starting today. We'll discuss how you can take that client-centric approach and meeting your clients and prospects really where they are in this digital age. We're going to, the whole reason we're all here today, those 6 reasons or 6 steps to reduce client friction during intake. One really cool bonus about making it more seamless experience for your client is it also, you can see almost an immediate effect on your staff because they have an improved experience as well as they work through intake. And then we're going to look at those kind of some next steps. So let's start with kind of addressing the leading legal intake challenge. So it's really important to find efficiency in intake for several reasons. One kind of that I think is the main reason is that really a majority of lawyers feel they're spending too much time on admin tasks, meaning those non-billable hours. So intake, as you all will probably agree with me, requires a significant amount of that admin work and non-billable hours. So you're really wanting to ensure the best use of both your time and your staff's time when you're trying to convert these relevant prospective clients. So if you're having kind of a hard time responding, or it takes a lot of work for your law firm to respond to these new leads right now, or maybe even a little bit worse, there might be a few leads that you're not responding to at all. We run into that with customers. You are losing out on potential revenue, and there are some really missed opportunities as a direct result of kind of these underperformed and underdeveloped procedures and processes. So really kind of want to focus in on that efficiency. And the reason really kind of behind that is a recent study shows that 2.6 is the average conversion rate of marketing efforts by law firms, and this is across the country. So it's kind of an eye-opening stat. When I first read it, I was kind of reading through it a couple times. It's just was a surprising stat for me. This report also is saying, though, the leading law firms, they could actually see a conversion rate as high as almost 16%. So there's a lot of room, for improvement on where you can go. And this is just kind of a really good stat to kind of see where you are compared to, a national average. Several important things I really want to call out kind of related to this stat. First, these are all of the channels combined. So this is referrals, paid search, and social. There are several channels that will probably convert better than others. So it's good to kind of keep in mind that this is kind of a general conversion rate, and you'll see all of those marketing channels that it references and what it includes kind of below that stat.
And I just want to add one thing here. If you're a law firm that's not doing a ton of paid media for your marketing, and you're relying on organic as the main driver of traffic, then this benchmark, might even be high for you. So, something to consider, that depending on your strategy, we could break this up and talk more about it. Typically organic, might be lower than 2%, maybe 1% if you're just relying on people Googling you to find your law firm. But depending on that strategy, it's good to know what those benchmarks are. So we may touch more on this towards the end, but Libby, I just wanted to include that for people.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a good thing to point out. This does include referral marketing, organic marketing. It's not all necessarily tied to a physical marketing budget. So I think that's a good thing to call out there, Joe. Another thing I think it's important to talk about is not all missed conversions are a bad thing. Not all leads are going to be a good fit for your firm. So this intake process should really recognize, maybe realize which leads aren't worth going after, because they could maybe provide more problems down the road than it's worth. So just know that not converting 100% of your leads is not a bad thing. You don't necessarily always want every single lead. You want to convert the best leads for your firm. And then the third one is, I hope you're tracking this metric. Hopefully when this a slide kind of came up, you're like 2.6, man, we're killing that conversion rate, and that's awesome. That's awesome. The fact that your conversion rates are also a really great metrics to understand. So in addition to understanding your overall conversion rate, really look at your conversion rates per practice area. If you happen to practice in several areas, maybe even your conversion rate per channel. There's really a wealth of information in understanding your conversion rates, because as Joe mentioned, there are some channels that may not convert as well. And then you'll also want to know if you're driving a ton of traffic to your website from a source, but it's not converting leads. If you're investing a lot of money in that channel, is it worth the continued investment? So understanding your conversion per channel is super helpful as well. Ultimately, in the end, just remember the basic goal of marketing: turn $1 into $10. I think maybe we can all agree behind that. So as this year, I've actually had the fortune of really getting back out and seeing bar associations in person, seeing law firms and customers in person. It's been really, really great. And as a result of kind of all these conversations, and also work a lot with law firm consultants, we're seeing kind of these are the top problems that continue to kind of rise to the occasion of problems during intake. So just wanted to kind of call out some of these issues that customers are seeing, law firms encounter, bar associations, things that we're always talking about. Number one is kind of that inefficient process or organization. This kind of goes back to when we were talking a couple slides ago that lawyers feel they're spending too much time on those admin tasks. And when we say the majority of lawyers, 80% of them, feel like they're spending too much time. And so this could be a number of factors. Maybe you're not working in the most efficient process, or you have a paper process. Maybe you're working in multiple platforms, and it's maybe providing some unintended bottlenecks. Ultimately, though, when lawyers spend too much time really focused on that admin task and not enough time practicing law, you'll see a higher rate of burnout. And so we really want to kind of reduce that burnout rate, really focus on easy ways that we can automate tasks and get those, especially reminder, bill collecting, those kind of things out of your processes, because those reminders are really a great way to automate some of those reach outs. If you are lacking consistency in communication, it's also something to kind of look into, because there's actually a study out there by the Journal of Legal Technology Risk Management, and they found that a consistent communication strategy is key for getting those conversions. You're going to increase the likelihood of your conversion from a prospect when you have a conversation with them. It's that conversation that leads to conversions. and really establishing consistent communication, protocols that include setting expectations on the front end, and even for the frequency that you'll be reaching out, the mode that you'll be reaching out. There's a simple way to do that. Maybe a well-organized and thought out welcome email, as soon as somebody enters your system, either through an intake form or a call, is a great way to kind of provide that information to them. Another one is kind of a slow response times to inquiries. We're hearing that about 40% of clients are waiting 2 or up to 3 days to receive a response from law firms. And so that kind of is pretty drastic difference between the expectation of your clients. 75% of these prospective clients, they expect a callback or at least a response of some kind within 24 hours. There's an even small amount, about 35% of prospective clients, they'd like to see a response kind of within the hour. And so, if you're taking 2 or 3 days to respond, you're not meeting your client's expectations. And so the nice thing is there have been some response rate improvements since 2020. I think law firms are really starting to see the value of going digital for intake. But if you find that you don't have the capacity to respond, or you maybe have a bandwidth problem, you should really look into addressing that, because the faster you can respond, the more likely your leads are to convert. And then finally, you'll maybe run into the aspect of where the clients are actually a little bit slower to engage. And so one thing we want to talk about here is ways that you can kind of really personalize the messages to them. We can do that through multiple communication channels. Are they more interested in a phone call, in an email, in a text, in a chat? Really tailoring that communication strategy to your client's preferences is going to be really important. You can ask these questions during intake and be part of the intake process. How do they want to be contacted? When do they want to be contacted, to kind of increase that connection rate? And then when it comes to kind of that competitive landscape, solo and small firms sit in a really unique situation, because you're actually seeing competition really coming in from all sides. So the main one is going to be, other law firms of similar size. But we're actually starting to see greater competition among larger law firms. They're kind of punching down a little bit, and they're kind of invading the space of, and competing for the same clients that these solo and small firms are competing for. And then we also are seeing a rise in the use of the DIY legal website services. And so I specifically want to call out that number 2 and 3, the larger law firms and the DIY websites, because if you're not maximizing efficiency, it could be a problem, because larger law firms, they tend to, not always, but they tend to have a little bit more money to throw around to either marketing budget or to win over clients. So you're dealing kind of with that budget issue, as well as with DIY websites. They are really dependent upon efficiency to improve their profit margins. And so if you aren't kind of dedicating time to becoming more efficient, I can guarantee you your competition is. And then let's talk about the benefits. Optimization helps all law firms, especially kind of these smaller ones, because you really want to make use of every single minute. And you can also really understand your processes to kind of make easier and quicker fixes. And so when when intake becomes more efficient, you can start converting more prospective clients. And so really, why would we want to convert more clients? Obviously, growing and scaling your firm is going to be a big reason. It's actually probably one of the top reasons lawyers are choosing PracticePanther, since our focus is on ease of use and the ability to incorporate processes to stay organized. We have really seen law firms start out with maybe a few users or a few staffers, and they really grow, can even double or triple their staff size. So that's been kind of really beneficial for our customers. But as I mentioned, I've been doing a lot of traveling kind of across country this year so far. And I've heard also, there are solos and small firms out there who are really happy with their current size, and they're not looking to necessarily scale to bring on more staffers. So there are other things that you can do or there are other benefits to optimizing, and that is really gaining additional time. If you are able to become more efficient, you get to go home earlier, you get nights and weekends, spend time, family and friends. If that time is really important to you, that's another huge benefit in becoming more efficient. And then also increasing your law firm processes. Right now, if you're feeling a little bit overwhelmed and you're needing to hire, one thing I would recommend doing is really looking at your processes to see if there's a way to incorporate automation to really reduce some of those staff hours. Otherwise, you might be hiring more staffers and you're going to be putting them to work in an already inefficient process. And so I want to take a moment and transfer it over to Joe, and I know he's going to talk all about kind of being that client-centered intake.
I will, Libby, thank you. And just one thing about, whether it's growth that you're after, or, maybe you want to grow, but you can't right now because staffing is a major issue. But if you're able to really hone in your intake process to get that time back, so, maybe you can start to focus on those other areas of business, like finding the right people to help take your firm to the next level, or just being able to enjoy a bit, healthier margins for yourself, pass bonuses on to your top performers and your A players on your staff, create the culture that will attract the right people to your firm to grow and scale and hit those goals. But I understand that, especially right now, it's not something that everyone can solve every problem all at once. If you start to focus on intake as that maybe first step in how to start transforming your practice into a new kind of engine of growth, of happiness, of joy, of service for you and your community. That's what I would recommend. And so how are we actually going to do that? Well, we talked a little bit before about some of the ways to first, when you know who your ideal client is, the really important part is making sure you're speaking to them in a language that they understand and appreciate. And when I say a language, what I really mean is, talk to them the way they want to be talked to. And if we think about communication channels as an easy, like low-hanging fruit, a way to start reimagining maybe how your intake process can work really for the benefit not only of the client on the other side, but your staff internally, making their lives easier and just increasing satisfaction across the board, while at the same time building trust, increasing confidence, and the value of your brand in the eyes of your consumer. I want to share a little bit of information before we get into the tactical how-to. So, Libby, if we can go to the next slide. I mentioned before, SMS texting is one of the things that's separating law firms that are really transforming their intake to serve the client at the highest level, and those that might just be going with the status quo, what they're used to. And if that's you, the good news is it's still early enough to make this switch and right away change how your clients are going to start to view your law firm if you just do this one thing, and that's including SMS. Maybe not just for your clients. I know a lot of law firms that will have systems set up to communicate with their clients for SMS, but also their leads, right? And so if we think about this process of intake, and even before the full intake, when you get someone interested, reaching out, looking for help, how are you going to best engage them to make sure that they do choose you to work with over your competitor? Because what we know on online marketing for law firms, if consumers reaching out to you with a question or looking for help, they're not just reaching out to one firm. They are typically reaching out to 3 or 4 firms on average. So making sure that you're not losing those opportunities is going to be huge. Okay, so that being said, why do I believe that SMS would be the best way for your law firm to transition your communication with leads, new intakes with clients about their matter? Well, it's because people really like to talk to you over text and they won't read your emails. We have a lot of stats to talk about this. So I pulled a few, numbers here. And if anyone wants to go a little bit deeper into this during the Q&A, we certainly can. But I'm going to focus on 3 metrics. That's engagement or open rates, response time, and response rates, right? So how many people read a text versus read an email? Almost everyone reads a text. 1 out of 5 might see your email. That is, if it does not end up in spam, in which case they're just not going to see it. So how are you able to, get your engagement rate or your open rate for a message from, a low number to something that virtually everyone sees? If you're relying on email right now to reach out to a client, let's give a quick example. If someone reaches out to your firm for help, maybe they submit an inquiry in a form, or if you have a chat on your site, they come in that way. And your team may call them and email them right now. And if they're not able to take the call, then maybe your team calls later, but okay, we sent an email. What's the likelihood that that person's even going to see it? 20% might be generous for the types of consumers in your practice area, depending on what type of work that you do. So, if it's estate planning versus bankruptcy, if they're bankruptcy, maybe they just never check their email or read their mail, and so they're definitely not going to see your note. That's why they're in trouble. So, kind of knowing a bit of your ideal client, that demographic, that avatar, is going to inform how these might transform your results at the end of it. But what we know, almost everyone, 98% of people see a text message. And there's even another stat, which is, I think 90% of those see it within 3 minutes, right? So it is going to transform. It's not going to be seeing their email, 3 days out. They see it right away. And response time, if you're waiting for someone to respond to an email versus a text, it is completely different. So if you are in a practice area, really so many consumer-facing practice areas, I'll just take personal injury as an example. You know that 90 minutes waiting for a response, the lead is pretty much gone at that point. But if you can get them to respond within minutes or seconds over text, your life is going to be better. Leads are going to turn into clients, the ones that you want them to, a little more often. And then response rates. No one responds to an email. About half of people respond to a text if you send it to them. Again, there's a lot of nuance here. And if we want to talk about different strategies to make those texts more engaging, there's a lot that we can talk about there, but I'll save that for later. We can move on to the next one.
Oh.
There we go. All good. And so now that we know a bit of, okay, how do we make that client experience a bit more centered on what they need? Okay, how do we get someone to reach out in the first place? Because again, if we're talking about referrals, that's one thing. If we're talking about people who may not know you, but either you appeared in a search, they read your blog, or you had an ad, the right place at the right time, and they want to find out, who's this person? Can they help me? Can they answer my questions? Again, they typically don't stop at one, they go to multiple. But if your website can create a first impression that will stop them in their tracks, get them to take action, stop the scroll is what people would say if you're talking about social media marketing. But here, that is the goal, to get their attention. And there's a few things that I want to mention, which is how are some ways that we can do that. I mentioned before, adding video to your website, whether that's part of like a chat funnel or whether that is part of, just a brand video on your site. They have different purposes, but using video creates a higher engagement rate. We know this. And conversions. If we think about conversions, meaning someone raising their hand saying, I need help, either by calling you, by texting you, chatting, or sending a form, those numbers go up on sites that use video compared to those that don't, right? The other thing, okay, so whether you're using video or not, channels of communication. It is changing rapidly. From when I started with Intaker in 2020 to today, the adoption rate of chat and specifically of chat automation and chatbots. And we could talk about ChatGPT taking over the world, but it's a chatbot. So it's becoming part of the public, dialogue and lexicon a lot more than it used to be. Whereas maybe years ago, people were a little bit suspicious of chatbots or weren't sure if they should put their information in them. Now, with a lot of big companies, you can't talk to someone on the phone. You have to use a chat to get your questions across, right? So the consumer behavior has shifted, right? Thanks to COVID, thanks to just technology and all these other changes. So are you using chat as a way for people to reach out? And I know you might be saying, oh, I've tried it before and a lot of the leads aren't good quality. And that's may just be the nature of the website traffic that's coming to your site. And, to a lesser extent, that's part of the experience of, maybe capturing more leads. They're not all going to be winners, but if you can just get one extra good lead per month that turns into a client, what is that going to do over time to your business? How is that going to open doors and help you grow to another level? And the last thing, to create a website that drives engagement, that has that first impression, that makes people say, I want to talk to this person, or, maybe they can help me, let me reach out. Using a clear call to action. And I know there might be different philosophies in legal marketing where some people say, I don't want to be salesy, right? Well, if someone comes to your site and then they don't see anywhere to engage with you and then they leave, right, because they had a little form down at the bottom, you had to scroll and you didn't see it, then are you really serving them at the highest level? Are you giving the best value you can to the people who come to you looking for help, looking for answers? I would argue you might be leaving something on the table. So what we know, if you use a clear call to action, again, that could be a chat, that could be a click to call, that could be some engagement tool on your site to bring it to life and let people know, oh, let me reach out. Just give them an option. And 72% more people are going to say, yes, I would like to speak with you. I might need your help. So just again, we're using numbers here to kind of communicate what we're talking about. And then in a little bit, we're going to switch to tactics. Oh my God, Libby, we're going long. We got to speed it up. Let's go.
I know, right? So we'll go to the next slide, right?
Yes.
All right.
Thank you. All right, cool. And so just to kind of close the loop here, what we're talking about, the other thing I wanted to mention is you might have a way for people to reach out on your site. You're increasing your conversions. You're using text message to make their life easier talking to you. But what happens next? How do you take that from a set of new tools that you've implemented into results? Because what we know, most sales happen on the follow-up. And I know we don't like to use the word sales when talking about law firms, but that's the truth of it. And so if you're getting leads, if you're not working these leads, if you're not following up appropriately, then you all are going to be leaving money on the table. So what we know is if you have a system in place to nurture your leads, then those unconverted leads are eventually going to turn into more clients. You're also going to be able to take those people that might be, cold traffic and, give them a way to warm them up. And eventually, if they're not ready to work with you today, maybe in a month or 2 months, depending on the practice area, you now have established that relationship. So if someone reaches out to you and they don't convert right away, it's not necessarily a dead case. PI, it might be. Other practice areas, I would say, have a system in place to keep nurturing these leads and following up persistently. I mentioned before, 80% of sales happen on 5 or more follow-ups. Most people would quit after 1. Don't be that one. And then response time. I mentioned before, I think, yes, when we talk about 98% of text messages are read, 90% of those are read. I said within 3 minutes. I'm wrong. It's 3 seconds. People are addicted to their phone. And if you text them, they're going to see that. Whether they're going to respond or not, we'll talk about some of the messaging, things that you can do there. But anyway, these are the reasons why it is important to start thinking about this, implementing tools, strategies, systems to take this from an idea into reality, transform your life and your practice. I think that's all I wanted to say on this.
Great information, Joe. I love it.
All right. And so, Libby, I'm going to keep rolling just a little bit here. We've talked about the problem. We've talked about the overall strategy, but tactically, how can you take these ideas and put them into action? Well, we worked together. We came up with 6 ways to maybe make this happen. And so we're going to get started, right? And so again, we talked about SMS. I want to give you a little more tactical information to take this from an idea and start implementing, right? There's 2 ways that you can start using SMS. Number one is two-way, manual, someone on your team, whether that's you or an assistant, going back and forth. The other way is automated SMS. I see success with firms that use a combination of these strategies. Why might you want to use automated SMS? It is a way to make sure that people get a response as soon as they reach out. They don't have to wait an hour for someone to see the message and then try to talk to them when they're no longer, thinking about it, right? So using automation in your SMS on that initial inquiry, you could do that with a contact form, by the way. If you have a contact form and depending on your setup, create a trigger to, a system that uses SMS to automatically send that text message. There are other tools like Intaker where the chat and the texting are very easily combined, where every chat that comes in gets an automatic response if they choose to, right? Because compliance is key. I'm skipping a couple to the bottom, but it is very important that you make sure you don't text people if they don't want to text. You could actually get sued, I think, $50,000 per infraction. That might be a high number, but it's crazy. The TCPA, Telephone Consumer Protection Act, means you can't text people if they say don't text me. So make sure that whatever system you're using to send automatic texts knows about this, has a way to get consent, and has the ability to send messages to people who want it without sending it to those who don't. Personalization, if I move back up, is just a way to make sure that when you send a text message, it has their name in it. If they give you their name as John on the chat or the contact form, making sure that you use their name John when you're reaching out to them, whether that's automated text or manual text, using tools that make that easy for your staff to personalize messages is huge. And two-way communication. Okay, what happens when someone submits a form or a chat, they get an automated text and then they reach out and say, oh, thanks so much. I can't wait to talk to you. I really need to speak to someone. Well, then someone has to jump in there and actually continue the conversation over text if, for example, they're not picking up the phone, right? So two-way communication, in addition to automated text, is the way to use this. Let's go to the next one. All right. Thank you. Hi, Charles. That's my friend, Charles Liputka. I wanted to show his beautiful face here. It's been a while since he joined me on the webinar. But anyway, why I love to show Charles, and if I had his whole video queued up, I would show you. This is what I talked about with the first impression before. When someone comes to your website, instead of just seeing a page that says we're the best law firm, if there is a short video from the attorney, whether that is the managing partner or one of the attorneys that is more involved in intake, letting people know, hey, you're probably looking for help with XYZ issue. You're not alone. We've helped other people through this before, and we find it a privilege to be able to talk with you and see if we can help you too. Click below, chat with us, and we can begin. Right from there, it's a nice way to add a friendly, warm, personal touch, automatically separates you from so many other law firms. And then from there, being able to capture leads, qualify them automatically, and then use this video to, drive that call to action. And then, the other thing is there are Intaker, obviously, we're proud to use video in our chat. It's not the only option in town. There's other chats that use video. Just make sure that whatever you choose, the experience is designed not just for like desktop, but for mobile, right? Because the mobile experience, about 2/3 website traffic to your site typically is from mobile. Let's make sure to have that audience in mind. We can move on. Okay, last one, and then I'm going to turn it around. So we talked about making life easy for clients, using text message, using automation, both with video, with chat, other channels to make it more personal, increase conversions, right? But now what happens after that? After they reach out, after they, get in touch with you, how are you going to continue that conversation? Not just on that first touch point, but over time, right? So I want to talk about follow-up automation because I know a lot of law firms that might know about this tool, but they haven't implemented it yet. And let me tell you the difference between a mom and pop shop personal injury and Morgan & Morgan, right? Is that why Morgan & Morgan got to be what they are is, yes, they transformed legal marketing for their firm, but they also transformed what intake was like, and adding these sales processes that are used by other huge companies to their intake department was able to work the leads, convert them on a much higher rate than average, and grow their firm. So if you don't have to be the biggest PI firm in the country, but you can really start to use the same tools to grow your firm in a way that is proven. And so what was once reserved for just the big players in terms of automating, engagement and working these leads with, text, email automation, as well as a very dedicated, diligent phone team, right? We always still need that. But anything that is a written communication, whether that's a text or email, making sure you are using a system that can take that off the plate of your team so they can focus on what they're best at, which is getting on the phone, speaking to these people, making sure that you're able to help them, and then getting them signed up, right? Take that, the rest of it, the text, the emails, off their plate. The way to do that is to use a system that for the leads that you want to follow up with can just do that for you on a schedule that you have set, right? So make sure that you're going to use a tool that, again, has that personal touch, can offer helpful information. And that means if there's someone that's not qualified, letting them know and giving them other resources, whether that's bar association or other referral service that they might find helpful. These are a few of the things to think about when you're automating your follow-ups. It's not like you want to get on the phone with every single person, right? Those that you do want to get on the phone with have a process to make sure that they're going to not forget about your firm against the other 3 or 4 that they probably spoke to. Give them the tools they need, the resources, but also at the same time, if you've got a lead that you can't help, make sure to give them something to put them in the right direction. And again, using automation in your text and email and all this stuff, going to make your life way easier. I hope that was clear, but I think I'm going to pass it back to Libby now. Thank you for listening, everyone.
Absolutely. And I think it's great, especially, your information about the communication, the automation, the follow-up. This is all really key information to really harness your intake and really optimize it. And convert those leads, convert those relevant leads. So as Joe mentioned, kind of all on the communication side and being, client centric, I'm going to take a few moments and focus on the overall process of the intake process. Actually, ABA publishes a report every 4 years. It's called the Profile of Legal Malpractice Claims. And we typically see kind of some similarities year over year. And like in previous reports, it's kind of those substantial legal errors make a majority, but actually a third of all kind of malpractice claims stem from administrative errors and client relations, typically dealing with neglect. So those 2 things, really highlight, you want to make sure you're getting rid of those admin errors and being as clear as possible for your clients moving forward. And you stay in a consistent communication that's required for either that specific client or case or things moving forward. So it kind of just highlights that robust importance of an intake process with clear communication, thorough documentation to kind of really lessen that malpractice risk. So within PracticePanther, we actually utilize native features to really kind of set up this process. We have our drag and drop intake forms that you'll see kind of over there on the left. Now, this will be the back end of what our customers are seeing. And so this will be like you're actually working in your platform. And then after somebody fills out an intake, we recommend tagging these clients. These are a great way to kind of filter and understand some quick information about your clients. One really great example that Joe mentioned earlier is having consent to text. So in maybe one of these contacts, okay to text is a great tag. So you have that quick information on who's okay to text versus maybe who's not okay to text. Some other tags you can kind of see, you can put them on your contact information. You can put them on your matter information. You can also kind of put them on your activities, and then you can sort and pull reports based on these tags. And then these tags can actually kind of help understand even our workflows and which workflows to use as your next kind of set of to-do lists. It kind of helps free up that always trying to think about what's next. You don't really have to keep it all in your mind anymore. It's going to tell you not only every morning will you get an idea of kind of what's due for that day, but you can go inside any workflow and find out who's working on it, where it's stopped, if anything's overdue. Workflow is kind of a really great way to kind of stay on top of the work that you have to put in for each case. So I'm just going to kind of quickly go over each of those. Advantages of native intake forms. So this really provides a lot of fast and seamless options because you can actually invite people to fill out forms on your website. You can have multiple forms, and that information will then automatically populate into your CRM. As you can see, you can kind of build in multiple different types of forms. And even kind of take it to that next level in your workflow. Maybe you have these questionnaires that you have to ask very specific law firms. On this screenshot, we're talking a little bit more about family law. So if you're dealing with family law, you had to deal with those kind of questions. If you also happen to have multiple practice areas and you deal with a little elder law, you can have questionnaires for that. So depending upon what practice is important to them, you can actually build out these questionnaires and then connect all of that information to the contacts within your system. You can really customize the look and feel. Our intake is a drag and drop, which is really awesome. So you can actually drag and drop, no code necessary, put in your first name, last name, how you want to be contacted, really kind of unlimited options for those intake forms. And then really easily transition those leads to clients. As I mentioned, you can build them as intake, you can build them as questionnaires. We've even had clients build them as surveys. So after you land a new client or after you win a major case, you can get really some good actionable insight from that process as well. In addition to intake forms, let's talk about these tags and utilizing these tags as filters. This is kind of a really unique feature within PracticePanther. And as I mentioned, you can really contact or tag any area of your contact, your matters, or activities. And this can really help create those communication strategies. Maybe how people come to your system, if they're coming to you either organically or via a display ad, that might require a different kind of process than someone who's a referral. Maybe that your referrals need a little bit more information, and you wanted to provide a little bit more details. So depending upon how somebody enters your system, maybe you want to speak to them a little bit differently. Allows you to build specialized workflows, especially not only in different practice areas, but within your practice area. For existence on family law, maybe you have you're building out a workflow for those who are needing adoption support versus those who are needing divorce. Those are going to require different needs and paperwork along the way. And so you can build out different workflows specialized to specific practice areas and then tag those. You could determine your bottlenecks. I've had a number of customers utilize phase tags. So phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. And at the end of the month or at the end of the quarter, when they are pulling all of their leads from the system, and if there are a bunch of leads kind of stuck in that phase 2, they're realizing there's a bottleneck there and there's something there's got to fix, so they can easily kind of move on to that phase 3 and maybe that final phase of intake. Understanding your marketing ROI and really qualifying your best clients, also a great tags to consider utilizing for your contacts and matters. And then really streamlining that process. Again, these workflows are great because they allow you to accomplish more with a smaller staff. Think of it as a checklist that you have to do for every case that comes in, and those are a lot of steps to kind of keep it track of in your mind, or especially, if you're working with multiple staff members in multiple locations, you want to keep everybody in the loop on what's going on. You want one source of truth. So that way, if a client does call in, everybody on the team really kind of knows where they are in the process. This helps with improved trackability. You can determine that task prioritization and really kind of harness that collaboration that we talked about, especially if you're looking to stay hybrid or if you're looking to go into a kind of a hybrid environment. We have a lot of chat features kind of within the platform and within those specific matters. So you can kind of have chats with your team members relevant to that case. And that really helps kind of reduce those errors, really improve that scalability, and then ultimately save time. In the end, when you start building in automations, workflows, tags, and things like that to save time, we find that customers save up to about 8 hours a week. So, that's quantifiable time that you could then spend either finding more clients, build, more billable hours, take that extra day, take some vacation, things like that. So those are kind of the processes within PracticePanther. So I'm going to turn it back over to Joe, and he wants to talk about a little bit of some marketing impact before we kind of wrap the webinar.
Yeah, we're just about at the end. We're a little bit over time, so thank you everyone for hanging in there with us. So one important thing that is not directly related to intake, but will help your intake over time by finding the right people and the right channels to reach those right people using marketing analytics. So when you are looking at leads that come into your system, do you have a way to see all the information? And we can think of it as the digital breadcrumbs, those things that would tell you a little bit about this person, such as exactly how they found you. If you're running campaigns like specific media, paid media campaigns, that's incredibly important. But even organic, if you know that someone found you on a local map listing versus a basic Google search, that's going to be helpful, right? So over time, this is going to help you make sure you allocate your resources in the best place and make adjustments to find, again, that ideal client, make sure you're attracting them instead of someone who you're not able to help. So the two things I want to mention that are a bit specific here are referring URLs and UTM parameters. Referring URLs will tell you how someone came in. Yeah, they came in on your website, and if they ask you, yeah, I found you on Google, but you can actually have much more detailed tracking information, including, did it come from a Google search, or was it actually like from a link in an email that they received, where maybe, or could have been a referral service like Avo or something like that. So on my little example here, the referring link shows that they actually clicked it from an email that they got. Whereas on other channels, it could be different. We can switch, Libby, to the next one. I just want to talk about the UTM parameters, which are knowing, for example, if you're using organic or paid campaigns, giving campaigns a specific name. There's easy ways. Your marketing person likely knows this, and you might even be using this but not have clear insight on the data. So make sure you're using tools that can show you clearly where each lead is coming from, their channel, their source, and any of those other details that you specify here. And so even specific terms for that UTM can be included here in whatever they searched as those data points that you and your team can then use to make sure you're filling the pipeline with the right folks. With that being said, I think those are all the details. We have a few minutes for a Q&A. So Libby, was there anything else that we wanted to mention before we switch to just a quick 5-minute Q&A here?
Yeah, I definitely would love if you want to take a few moments, if you happen to have a chat or sorry, let me pull that up. If you happen to have a Q&A, or if you want to drop something in the chat, that'd be great. We do have a few minutes. If you're interested in learning a little bit more about PracticePanther, you can go to our demo page, or you can kind of scan that QR code. If you and I are not connected on LinkedIn, I would love to kind of stay connected on LinkedIn, give you guys a follow and see what you're up to and what you're engaged with. But I love LinkedIn and things like that, so you can always reach me there as well. Very cool.
Libby, thank you. This is good. I think there might be 1 or 2 questions that we have time for. But anyway, yeah, there's a Q&A box down at the bottom. So if there's another third question, drop it in there. We can answer it. And by the way, everyone knows how smartphones and QR codes work now. So if you just take your camera and scan that, you're going to be able to either find a time to speak with me, my team, or Libby and her team to learn a bit more about Intaker, PracticePanther, if these tools might be right for you. So please go ahead and take a moment and do that. If there's anything that you wanted to inquire or learn about that we talked a bit here today, we can go deeper into exactly what you're curious about. Absolutely. And I did see something kind of come in, and didn't know if there were some practical tips for kind of implementing these different opportunities that we talked about today, whether it's a communication strategy, intake forms, processes and things like that. What are some tips for kind of starting and launching if they haven't really had a chance to really get into the intake process yet? So I think if we think about that, turning an initial interaction into the beginning of a successful intake, right? There's a few ways to do that with forms. You mentioned that on PracticePanther side, being able to build and use these interactive forms that can start to give your team the right information faster, right? In terms of if this is someone they can help. So using those form builders that you mentioned, if you are either in PracticePanther or maybe, some other service, being able to use those tools. And I would not stop there. I would also say if you're not using chat on your website, it is a great place to capture leads. One of the issues that people have with it is if chats are designed to not get the right information, then they wind up just getting more work than it's worth to find out, who is this person? Are they the right fit? Do I have time to spend on them? So make sure if you are using a chat that it's set up to pre-qualify those leads, similar to the contact forms, Libby, but using different communication channels is the first step to increasing the number of people that are going to reach out and making it easier for your team to go ahead and see who they can help and serve and make sure they prioritize those ones accordingly. So was there anything else that you wanted to add?
I guess really the only thing that I would add is, it's okay to start small. It's also, this might feel a little bit overwhelming if you are, you need to work on your intake, you need to work on your workflows, you don't have a communication strategy. It's like, you kind of get pulled in a lot of different directions at once. And so it's really okay to start small and you don't have to do it all at once. Write it down. If you don't have a process, start there, write it down, and build out from there. The cool thing within PracticePanther is you can start small and always build upon what you're doing. So that's kind of one recommendation I have. It's easy to get overwhelmed. I hear that from a number of law firms. And so just know, you know how you eat an elephant, one bite at a time, right? And we did have just a couple other questions come in. Are PracticePanther and Intaker affiliated? Are they designed for kind of integration with one another? And so, Joe, I'll let you kind of take that one.
Yes, and so we do have an integration through a tool called Zapier where Intaker and PracticePanther can work together. And typically how people use that are capturing Intaker leads with the chat side and then putting those leads automatically into PracticePanther so that they live in the system where all of your other contacts live, both clients and intakes and leads. So we do have people using that. And if you want to learn more, if you are using both tools, or if you're thinking about how you can use both tools to, up level your intake and streamline things for both your clients and your team, reach out to either me or Libby. We'll put you in touch with the right people to show you how that works. So we're happy to do that. Jason, thank you for that question.
Yeah, thank you, Jason. We have another one from Michael, and it's, is there an option for automated text in PracticePanther, or is that an Intaker feature? We actually have automated text as well. A lot of our automated are kind of sent on a push notification response, great for reminders. So you can send a reminder, hey, don't forget to pay your bill tomorrow, or maybe you forgot to pay your bill yesterday. Hopefully you're not sending many of those. Reminders are great also for kind of meetings and if they have to be somewhere. We also offer a two-way text kind of within the platform, which is really great because you never actually have to leave the platform and your clients don't have access to your personal cell phone number if that's something you don't want them to have access to. So great question as well.
Very cool. I think we have time for one more, Libby. I want to just answer this one that Samantha asked. What is your recommendation for following up with leads who have not responded since the initial inquiry? How many times should we follow up and how often? And what do you say in the follow-ups? I would say, depending on your practice area, if it's PI, right, or if it's estate planning, it's going to be different answers, right? So kind of know what is the sense of urgency for this particular client, where again, if you know that this time is really of the essence. I know a lot of people that do a 3x3 system, 3 phone calls, 3 texts, and 3 emails over 3 days. So 1 a day for 3 days. If you're looking for a place to start, I would say start there. I would, in terms of exactly what to say, again, really depends on what the what kind of practice area it is and kind of what the nature of the inquiry is. So having kind of knowing what is their concern and making sure when you talk about, when you send them a follow-up, right? Number one, don't use the words following up. responding to your inquiry, right, is a better one, about blank, whatever they said. So don't just say, about your inquiry, whatever that result is that they're looking, if they're looking for, divorce, they reach out to you, then, inquiry on, resolving, your family law issue. Be a bit more specific, but positive. Anyway, that is what I just wanted to answer. And Libby, I know we got to drop, but is there any other final closing thoughts that you wanted to share?
Just really appreciate everybody's time today. I do see that we have a few open questions. I'll kind of I'll save those and try and kind of reach out to you specifically, and I'll connect with Joe to make sure you're getting answers for both of us as well. Because I know we went a little bit long. We had a lot to cover in this presentation. We really appreciate you sticking with us. And please reach out if you have any other questions. You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm also Libby at joinparadigm.com. And so I can you have access to my email in the response emails from this webinar. We will probably get it out early next week.
Very cool. And if you answered a question we did not get to, myself or Libby will respond to you in an email, on the email that you registered on. Thank you all. So appreciative. Libby, thank you so much for hosting this. It was great.
Yes, thank you so much. It's great to work with you again, Joe. So,
all right. Take care, everyone. Until next time. Cheers.
see everybody.